having the discipline, focus, and mental energy to go after your goals can be tough if your body's out of whack and you're not feeling great. We've all been under the weather at some point and not feeling 100%. But when illness or fatigue or lack of sleep continues to linger, trying to get anything done becomes a challenge. In order to keep your mind sharp and your energy up, your body needs to be healthy so you can fire on all cylinders. But what if you have more days filled with fatigue rather than energy? Well, it could be related to the foods you're eating. And as my guest today says, you may quite literally have poisons in your pantry. In this episode, we are going to take a look at some of the misinformation on so-called healthy eating or clean eating, and this goes well beyond gluten-free diets. And we're also going to talk about some simple changes that you can make to keep your body and mind operating optimally. It's all coming up next. Stay with me. Welcome to Shift or Get Off the Pot, the podcast that helps you get out of your head and into action so you can make your dreams your reality. Let's get to it. Wow, do I have a show for you today. If any of you have ever suffered from fatigue, maybe some chronic aches and pains, anxiety, stress, you can't sleep at night. I know quite a few people that have difficulty sleeping at night. Or maybe you have some excess weight that no matter what you do, you just can't seem to get rid of it. Well, I have brought on my guest today because she is an expert in health and particularly women's health and those women that are in midlife, because she herself knows quite a bit about all of those symptoms and probably a few more as well. And she found a way to cure herself because she realized that traditional medicine or the health that she was trying, all of those different things that they were telling her to do, they weren't working. Until she finally took things into her own hands and started to take a look in her diet, what she was doing, what was in her foods, some of the toxins, and all the things that she really discovered that ultimately turned her health around. And so she is joining us today. She has actually written a book called Poisons in the Pantry, and we will get into that as well. But she is a Primal health coach and she is a wellness advocate. And she is here today to shed some light on what might be hiding that you might not be aware of that could be causing all these problems. And honestly, you can easily change it. She's joining me today. Please welcome Suzanne Roth Paul. Hi.
Hey, nice to see you, Kim. Thanks for having me.
And listen, I am so excited that you're here because quite frankly, I think this is a topic that I think we're starting to get more and more aware of it. I think people are a little bit more open to, okay, yes, we understand diet has something to do with it, but I don't think we know just how much. It's not just gluten and it's not just getting free crusts of pizza or gluten-free crackers, which let's face it, if you look at those things and you look at the ingredients, you're like, wait a minute, but it's got all this other stuff in it too, sugar and oil and canola oil or things that I really don't want. I think it goes much deeper than some of the surface stuff. And we can start to see that there's so many toxins that have been hiding in our foods that we don't even know of. And not even in our foods, but I think in some of the medicines that are pushed upon us as well. So I would love to hear first, if you could define what a primal health coach is. And then I'd love to get into kind of your background and your history, like when you first started realizing that you had issues that just traditional medicine wasn't helping with.
Yeah, let's see if I can unpack this in a very compact and efficient way that doesn't overwhelm you and your audience, but thank you for the opportunity. And I like that you are aware so much too, Kim. We've had conversations and it's amazing how many people are awake. So I just want to get that out there right now that some of this information I'll be sharing for some people is not new information and others it's like, what? people I'm being poisoned. My food is poisonous. I don't even read ingredients. What are you talking about? So, but thanks for that and for the opportunity. But yeah, I'll start with the beginning of when I noticed that there was an issue, but I was not even aware of it until I was well into I think I was in my late 40s when my mother dropped the bombshell to me that I almost died at the age of 2 because I had asked her, why do I look unhappy in this big, beautiful portrait that they had of me? And I'm the only one. I'm the youngest of 3 girls, and I was the only one who got this really beautiful portrait. My other sisters were kind of lost in the mayhem of raising children, and I looked really unhappy, and I looked like I was really forcing a smile. And she said, "Well, that's because we almost lost you. We didn't even know that you were going to make it to the photo shoot." And I said, what? And so this is I was right on the periphery of learning about my health issues, but I didn't quite know about really what was the cause and what was going to happen. So this was in probably my early mid 40s. And so that's when, I said, okay, I kind of like heard it, but I didn't really hear it. And so at the age of 2, I'd almost died. And so basically, that was the beginning of all of my metabolic syndrome issues, which means that my body was going to go catawonk as soon as I got into puberty. So let's just say from 2 onwards, I had a lot of issues, a lot of insecurity. I had nervous system issues. I couldn't speak in front of the classes. I watch the kids nowadays speak in front of, my son was doing presentations at 10 years old, and I'm like mortified for him. I'm like, I couldn't even imagine doing that. So I already had a dysregulated nervous system. We know that was what was causing a lot of my issues as I move forward. And it was when I discovered with a doctor just about 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, she said, "You almost died at age 2. And I said, yeah. She goes, "What happens at age 2, Suzanne?" And I said, well, the terrible 2s, your temper tantrums and going crazy and just being obnoxious. And she said, no, that's when you got possibly the most vaccines. Mm-hmm. That was the first time anybody ever put 2 and 2 together for me. And that was only 5 years ago. But I've been on this health journey since I turned 47, but I'd already had a lot of perimenopausal issues in my early 40s. But from 2 years old until early 40s, all of the signs were there. I had metabolic function disorder. I had chronic fatigue all my life. I had memory issues. I had nervous system issues. Like right now, my heart is just pumping because I'm in front of a camera. And I'm shocked that I can actually do this. I wish my mom was alive to see this, but I can do it now. But I have to do a lot of, deep breathing, and I have to calm the nervous system. So I did have doctors over the course of my life telling me that they thought it was a nervous system issue. And that was only when I started seeing functional medicine doctors. But when I got into back to 2 years old to teenage years, I was sick every flu season for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And my mother would say I could count on it like it was clockwork. You're going to get the flu. So all through elementary and all through middle school. And then when I got into high school, it exploded even more because I was dating. So then there was the kissing disease, mononucleosis, and I had lots of boyfriends. So I was obviously very active in the smooching department, as my mother always said. So I was constantly getting sick. So they thought it was odd. Nobody in my family, Kim, ever got my flus. This is the most bizarre thing. If you think about flu today, everybody catches it. It runs through the family like it's a wildfire. Mm-hmm. Nobody in my family ever got sick. I never remember my father getting sick. I never remember my mother, who was holding me, taking care of me, with violent vomiting. And when I get sick nowadays and I have to go, vomit, I'm always like, who's going to hold me? My mother literally had to hold me. So it's really kind of interesting how I remember that so distinctly. But
I have a quick question on that.
Sure.
Because you said you have 2 sisters. Were they vaccinated too?
My oldest sister's 12 years older than me. So I would say probably not like I was.
Right.
My middle sister is almost 5 years older than me. So there's a change there. But the other part of it that I'll just thank you for mentioning this. The other part of it was my mother was a chronic smoker. So by the time I was born, she was 12 years. My oldest sister's 12 years older than me, 12 years into polluting her body. And we know nowadays that we're being polluted as well. So every time a mother inhales a cigarette and you're in the womb, you are losing air. You're being suffocated. And so I have breathing issues too. I've always had a stopped up nose. I've always been a mouth breather. It's all these things started happening and coming together when I discovered this. So yes, my mother was a chronic smoker and she did not want a third baby. So she cried during her entire pregnancy and was unhappy. And so basically when I was born, I wasn't wanted. Now, that's not saying my father adored me. My father's told my mother, that's going to be your best baby yet. You're going to be best friends. This is going to be the best thing for you, which it did. My mom and I were really close. But the point was, this was pollution from the womb, then the vaccines, and then I was around agriculture. I grew up in South Texas. And so my backyard, we lived in the country. We had horses, chickens, dogs, cats, ducks. We had it all. We had a great life. My dad had a garden the size of most people's houses, but we were surrounded by fields that were growing wheat, corn, and cotton. And yes, they were sprayed to hell and gone.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, were they pesticides being sprayed?
Herbicides. They were, this is in the 60s, early 70s. So it was just the beginning, Kim, and I'm learning this, thank goodness, from Robert F. Kennedy. He's talking about my generation and my decade was the beginning of the end for our environment and our pollutions. That's when it all started. Yeah. So I played in the field. My mother tells a story how I lost a pair of shoes and she said, "Where are your shoes, Suzanne?" They were in the portrait. They were these beautiful yellow pair of shoes. She said, "What happened to them?" And I said, I don't know, but I do remember my little friend, a boy was a little friend. He was walking in my shoes, waddling, and we were out in the field. So my shoes got lost in the field, but we were playing, riding our horses in the fields. We were surrounded by the spraying. There was an airport now this is fascinating. There was an airport just around the corner from me that was small, but they were a crop duster family, and they had lots of farmland. And all of the family, except for one daughter who's still alive today, she's my oldest sister's best friend, all of them have died from horrible symptoms, Parkinson's, all kinds of degenerative diseases and things like that. I don't know the mother, but they all passed away from really bad, conditions and toxins. So when I go back just quickly to my teenage years and my puberty and then getting through to my 20s, my hormones were a wreck. So I had the early onset of hormonal dysregulation, but nobody really knew what it was. And so they were treating me. Eventually, I had rampant skin issues. I had cystic acne. Now, I was a master of makeup artist, so nobody even knew it. But today, fast forward in my 60s, my skin looks better than it ever has. And when people compliment me on my skin, I'm thinking, no, they really can't. They're not seeing the real me, because I've always had such terrible skin issues. But I had the skin issues. I had missed cycles. I just had irregular periods, all kinds of health issues. And looking back, I remember, everybody in my family has memory issues. Nobody can recall names. We all have this kind of deficit in our memory. And even though they didn't catch all the things and have all the issues that I had, and, my sisters have their issues. My oldest sister struggles from weight and emotional health issues. My mother had emotional health issues. I have them. It's kind of hereditary. It runs in the family, but it's aggravated by our diet and our lives.
Not just diet, though, because it's obviously some of the things that, I hate to say it, but the pharmaceutical companies are pushing, because I know that, like you were bringing up cystic acne, and I know a lot of kids that get cystic, and is Accutane, right? So they push Accutane, because if you get Accutane, but then, okay, I'm sorry, how dangerous is that? If you have to take anything where you have to go in every other week or whatever and get your blood drawn, to see if your liver, I think it's your liver, to see if that's okay. I know, because two of my kids did that, and then we pulled them off because I was like, you're not going to go in and have your blood drawn. There's something wrong with that. If you have to put and then we looked at it, and my daughter is, she is licensed in international in, oh gosh, what is it? The functional health medicine. Yes, thank you. And she started really studying a lot about adrenal fatigue just because of her schedule traveling and performing. And we know now that adrenal fatigue also can lead to the cystic acne. So it's like, okay, wait a minute. You can change that with different foods and your diet and things that you're doing just by altering a few different things. And there's a lot of things that we've learned in my own family that you find in nature that are natural remedies.
Absolutely. Well, my mother was ahead of her time, bless her heart. She wanted me to be a dietitian. She said, "Oh, Suzanne, you missed your calling," because I went to design school and became an interior designer. So I was really creating people's homes, ironically, the beauty of their interiors. And now I've switched in my latter part of my life just by matter of just a need. And I really retired right now, which is a joke because my husband says, "I thought we were retiring and traveling and enjoying our lives. And why are you doing this work?" And it's a calling. It's a purpose. I just know the pain that women are suffering and it's still happening today, Kim. Even 20 years ago when I was discovering all of this, it's even worse. Doctors are even more inundated with overwhelm and burdened and obviously over medicating. But one thing I did want to mention, I didn't answer your question for the audience about what a primal health coach is.
Right.
And I'll just touch on that quickly. So Primal, certified primal health coach is from the organization. I don't know if you know Mark Sisson, but Mark Sisson is a really phenomenal, another person. He's not making a lot of noise right now about this whole health world at the moment, which is interesting. But he was one of the first gurus in Southern California that was dealing with metabolic health because he was an athlete and he was a runner and he was skinny as a rail and he was running and doing marathons, but he was never healthy. And then when he went back and looked at his diet, he was realizing he was pumping himself with, do you remember corn syrup? And doing all of these goo drinks. They're still out there today. It is absolutely shocking that that's still out there with all the information. So he ended up being the one that, started the company of the Primal Kitchen Foods. And then he started getting into coaching and he created this program. And so I did it because it was kind of down and dirty. I didn't really feel like I wanted to go back to school. And it was the best thing I ever did because it dealt with our ancestral lifestyles. And so the bottom line is our DNA has not changed for hundreds of thousands of years. But what has changed is our foods and our lifestyles. And so if you think about our DNA back then, what were we eating? We didn't have processed foods. Even ask if you're looking at a food item and you pick up a product and you're like, did my great grandmother eat this? It's in a package, in a can, in a bottle. Bottles were okay, but you've got cans and plastic and all of these processed foods and packaging are also part of the problem. So that's what it basically means. I focus on the way of living and lifestyle that we had generations past. And
I love that. I love that because also they didn't have pesticides. I mean, I know my uncle in Canada had a beautiful vegetable garden and we could go out there as kids, pick carrots right out and eat them and they tasted delicious. And that's one of the things I like about a lot of European countries. The milk is not pasteurized, right? I mean, you can leave it out on the counter. The butter can be left out on the counter. You could go and pick raspberries off the bush and you're fine. You don't have to worry because nothing's sprayed or overly sprayed. It's just different.
And it's so sad because I have a garden here and I live in Northern California and I'm actually in a county, Marin County, where we have the highest rate of breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And they associate it with wine drinking because wine country is right up the road. We used to think it was because the wine was, they're alcoholics, or they're drinking too much wine. It isn't that they're drinking too much wine. It's because now we know the wine industry is being polluted with glyphosate. So glyphosate is, Bayer, Monsanto. So Monsanto was an American company. I don't know if you know that, Kim. It was an American company that's been, poisoning us for decades. Well, they started getting all kinds of billions of dollars of lawsuits. So they ended up hemorrhaging money. And so Bayer asked the company Bayer in Germany, they've bought Monsanto and now they're spreading the American love all over Europe. Because this German company now, let's not get into that because I can tell you some pretty sad situations right now with the current war that we're experiencing, for instance, with Ukraine. So anyway, the point of it is that, the California industry, even organics, there's a man we have a good friend who's an organic winemaker and he swears they don't spray. And I said, it's not that they don't spray. It's that everybody else around them does.
So they still get it. It leaks into it, right?
And, even pre-pandemic, I met this was her tagline. You heard me say this before, Kim, that environmental toxins are the root cause of chronic illness. And I met her around the time she was educating us all on environmental issues and glyphosate. So that was my introduction to glyphosate. But I'd already known that. Let's see, back in my late 40s, early 50s, I started learning. I'm 61 now. So in my early 50s, when I started getting healthier and better and learning about what was causing all my health issues, and the doctors were supporting me, the functional medicine doctors, but I was still struggling. I was still sick because I was still eating foods that were harming me. That was when I wanted to take down Monsanto. I was like, okay, I'm going to just get some people and we're going to go talk about Monsanto and we're going to talk about glyphosate and how it's ruining our life. Well, I got shut down very quickly that you're not going to take a monolith like that. That's like trying to move, a mountain. And so what we had to do was go around it. And what's so funny is I pussyfooted around it for a long time. And now here it is coming 180 degrees. We are right back where I started 10 years ago complaining about this. RFK's been arguing about it, debating it for 20 years.
I mean, I'm surprised I'm not surprised they're still in business. I just feel like with all the information that's out there. And also, there was a movie that was just out too. It was about the Teflon coating on the pans.
Yes.
I forget the name of the movie. Great movie though. Oh my gosh.
They all are. And people are still using Teflon.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. I'm like, we know all this. Why are you selling it? It should be, and I'm sorry, FDA, but take the dang stuff off the shelf.
Well, here's the reason. It's monumental right now, Kim. It's such a big endeavor that I'd probably say 80% of the products out there are harming us. And so what do you do? How do you start with they've got the momentum so big? I mean, these manufacturers, you'll take it away and they create something else that to me is just as harmful. So they're just like, they're shuffling so quickly right now. And do you know too that, I mean, we could talk about, I'll get off the subject here, but do you know too that cigarette companies obviously have lost a shitload of money, excuse my French, but they're not doing so well right now. So, obviously the Surgeon General put on there that cigarettes are harmful for your health. So people start paying attention, even though it's still now vaping is taken over and kids are my son got into that and it was heartbreaking. So the cigarette companies had to find another way to make money. Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard somebody say that the food industry bought the cigarette companies. It's not that. It's a cigarette company bought the food industry and said, okay, we're going to poison the foods. And so that's just it, very bluntly, that is what has been discovered. And if you want to research this further, oh my goodness, I've been listening to things. I was up late last night listening to Dr. Casey Means, Casey and Means. And she and her brother are highly, highly intellectually intelligent doctors. And the brother his name is Kelley. He went the direction of, I think they both went to Stanford. He might have gone to Harvard. She went to Stanford. And the brother went off to the pharmaceutical industry and kind of went that route. And the sister was a doctor. And I don't even know their age. I don't know that they have children, but they're probably 30s to 40s. I don't know exactly. And she was talking about how this information that she's discovered that the colleges are not being taught it. The medical profession is not being taught it. The food industry is denying it. It's insidious. It's because at the very top, we have a elite that are actually controlling all the decisions being made. Yeah. And so she's basically blowing the whistle on everybody right now. And it's so exciting, and it is beyond comprehension on what's going on. So we do have a reason for it. And what Dr. Casey is saying and RFK is saying is that we have an opportunity to now, like never before. The evidence is there. The information is there. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah. And so that's the big thing. What are we going to do about it? Because it's a system that's been in place for so long, and it's financial. I mean, if the company is supporting colleges or putting more money into, colleges or different companies and such, of course, you're going to go back and.
It ties back to, I didn't even realize this too. My husband's a finance person, and it ties back to Wall Street. Mm-hmm. And we had a conversation. I have some good friends I've met that are in San Miguel, Mexico, and they are talking about, the whole food industry too, poisoning Mexico. America's involved with a lot of stuff right now where they want to come over there and spray the hell out of heligon in a lot of the foods that we're getting from Mexico. So Mexico is a little bit, they're ahead of us, even though they've got their Mexican mafia. They are like, putting the brakes on. And one of the things that we've been talking about, with this whole industry is, how do you do it in a way that is, redirecting the information so that we're not pissing off, a certain sector of the population or the industries. So that this is my message, is that if we educate and we tell you then you will make better choices, not because you don't want to eat that cookie over that cookie or that package over that package. It's because if you can learn that these companies are killing you, they are profiting off of your illness. So get mad about it and say, I'm not going to support these American products, Nabisco, Kellogg just got busted. There's just all these companies that they're, social media is inundated and people are waking up. And so then they're finding out about these ingredients and we know that America is being poisoned. Europe doesn't allow the level of harm in their foods that we are allowing. And so there's all these, correlations between McDonald's and the French fries, what's on their ingredients. They still do industrial seed oils in Europe, soybean, or it might be sunflower, which is also a bad oil. That's why my number one poison to get out of your pantry is industrial seed oils, because cardiovascular disease is the number one cause of death. And these oils are plugging up your arteries. And then the second number one cause of death is stroke. And the third is, what was my third? Respiratory issues. So if you think about poor circulation, this all ties in. Those are the three things that have to do with poor circulation. Metabolic health really just means cell health. So if you do not have healthy cells, your body won't be well, because we're made up of billions of cells. Yeah. We're just walking cells, interesting enough, because your organs have cells, your skin has cells, your brain has cells, your lips have cells. Every part of you is made up of cells. So the toxins are getting into our cells, and I call it toxicating our cells. And so my work right now is educating people, not freaking them out and not saying, take all this stuff away. It's just saying, take a deep breath. All of our chronic issues are coming back to one problem. Our cells are being polluted. And if you can just remember that, then you can go to your pantry and you can look at all of those foods that you have in there, whether it's Coca-Cola, diet Coca-Colas, or even worse, anything with diet on it, you want to throw in you don't even want to look at. But if you could just say, okay, these things are harming me and they're harming me. So if they're harming me as a parent and as an adult, they're definitely wrecking my family, because my moods are terrible. My energy is terrible. My attitude is terrible. So think about all that it impacts when your cells are not well, and you've got fatigue, and this was me. My poor son, I had to apologize to him and my husband for all these years of what a crazy woman he married. My husband, I said, you had no idea what you married, because we're probably $30,000 to $50,000, Kim, in health costs for me over the course of our marriage. And we've been married 36 years this year. So he's been with me longer than he was with my parents. And we've hemorrhaged money, because they're not looking, they looked at the root cause, and they said, oh my God, in my 40s, oh my God, you've got all these food, you can't eat dairy, you can't eat soy, you can't eat corn, you can't eat wheat, you can't, right. And get the sugar out. And I cried for a week after that, but then I was so desperate that I did what they said. So within a year, all of my symptoms had gone away. Within 2 weeks, big results. Couple of months in, huge results. And after a year, I was humming until I started getting back into eating gluten-free products. And that's when it all went haywire. But the point I'm making is that we're looking at the root causes, but nobody was dealing with my toxic burden loads. They said, you have toxins, you're full of mercury. The doctors, after she did all my lab testing, I went in there and she says, and she was a little bit of a scaremonger, and she was always freaking me out. And she goes, oh my God, Suzanne, how much tuna fish do you eat? And I looked at her and I said, well, I like tuna fish, but I don't eat a lot of tuna fish. She goes, your mercury is off the charts. So bingo. That was what was causing all my dysregulated nervous system.
And that will cause a lot of problems. I had my son's friend loves to fish, and he's always getting bluefin tuna, or he's always eating tuna. And it was diagnosed as something else. And a lot of times that's the issue. It's misdiagnosed. And then finally somebody realized it was an overload of mercury, and it completely changed everything for him. But I also want to go back to something you said earlier about, because we'll get into the poisons in the pantry a little bit on that too. But I think what a lot of people do is And I know that early on we were trying to take a look at, okay, what's really better for my family to eat. And I've always been, because my mom was a nurse, she was a surgical nurse actually, but because she started looking at health and what could help people and, to avoid certain surgeries, she started getting into holistic eating and started really taking a look at food and mind, body, spirit, and all of that. And so she was pretty good about the items that, as we got older. And then I never, like for me, I knew sodas were so bad, particularly for the teeth and the bones and all that stuff. And then the excess fluoride that they want to give people. It's just like all that stuff. You start researching it, right? But I think it's really easy to look in the cupboard and go, okay, well, I'm not having I'm having the gluten-free stuff. And I talked a little bit about this in the intro, but if you look and you say, wait a minute, well, it doesn't have, things don't have lard in them anymore. Everything's like vegetable oil. Isn't that good for me? But then if you look at it and you say, no, it's not, because where does that stuff come from and what does it really do to your body? I don't think enough people understand that certain oils are not good for your body, even if they're vegetable oils.
Oh, vegetables, that's a joke. They're as far removed from vegetables by the time they're processed than even, what they originated from. And they're a byproduct of a industry. So they're from like basically an industry that they were using these products for, like oiling cars and using them for lubrication on construction projects. And they had this excess of this sludge is what it was. And they said, what do we do with this? And that's a really fascinating story if you want to go back and research it. I have a doctor that I really love, and I don't know where she is right now. She's not being very vocal about this, but she's the doctor that my Poisons in the Pantry ebooks are based on her research and her knowledge. And her name is Dr. Kate Shanahan, and she has a book. It's sitting right over there on my counter, my bookcase. It's called Deep Nutrition, and she goes into the whole nitty gritty about what these seed oils are and where they came from. And it was right around the time when they had this sludge, they had to do something. It was a byproduct that they were using. Were they processing? Because junk food's been around for a long time. Because when I was a kid, that's what rotted my teeth, is we would go to our local Maverick Market and 7-Elevens and all of that. Maverick Market, I grew up in Texas. I don't know if I even said that. I grew up in Texas in agriculture. But we would go there and get hands full of candy that remember 10 cents? You could buy stuff for a penny. And we would just eat ourselves silly and with sugar highs and, et cetera. So all that junk was already there in the early 70s. But this is a byproduct of an industry that they were trying to get rid of this sludge. And then somebody hired, I say they, but we go back to these insidious profit over people folks. They hired a doctor from Harvard to mislead write a report, and that's what's happening today, write a report that said that healthy fats like, butter and lard and tallow, which is beef fat, and all of these oils, even if avocado oil, and, we didn't have all those things back then, but even avocado oil and olive oil, that they were actually causing heart attacks and trouble, and that we needed to get all those healthy fats out and put in margarine, fake, put in seed oils, fake. And then if you read my book goes into, by Dr. Kate Shanahan, how they make this product, and it's an industrial product. And by the time they do it and they bleach it and they color it and they process the hell out of it, it gets packaged into plastic bottles. And it isn't, you remember, oils go rancid. They're not in dark bottles. So if you're buying expensive olive oil and you're buying good olive oil, it doesn't have to be expensive, but good olive oil, but good avocado oil, a lot of times even sesame seed oil, which is, some of these things we can eat, all of your nut oils that are easily not heavily processed, they're all in dark bottles, Kim.
Yeah.
Well, by the time these oils get to the grocery store shelving, and there's like lines and lines and lines of them, and shelving after shelving, they're rancid already. They're already toxic. So
because they're in plastic bottles.
Because of the plastic bottles, it doesn't even matter. They don't need light protection because they're already dangerous. And so this was a propaganda. We have propaganda that has been pushing all of this, talking about fats, how unhealthy fats are. So you fast forward to primal approach to living. My mother her grandparents had a farm. They were farmers and they were really ranchers. So they had cows and then they had orchards and then they had with the cows, they milked the cows. My mother was so blessed as a young girl because she got to go and she remembers, putting her finger in the clabbered milk and getting the yogurt right off of she was always getting her hand slapped. But that's everything they ate was the full fat. So it was the fat of the milk, non-pasteurized. It was full cream butter. It was full creams and milks. And they were consuming animal products. They cooked, they butchered their cows. I remember as a young girl going to my great-grandparents' house and there was carcasses in it. We'd go as kids and go, ooh,
that makes me so
creepy.
sad.
It was sad, but so delicious. And so that's how my great grandparents lived, and that's how a lot of
my uncle was like that too up in Canada, and I just remember going, I can't name, I don't want to know the name of that cow, as a little kid, because I was like, I don't know if I'll see that one next time I'm up here, but
that's what they say.
I have a quick question about the oils.
Sure.
So what is a healthy oil then? And do you buy it in a glass bottle and put it in the fridge? Because I had heard you should put it in the fridge.
Huh. Well,
I don't know. I've heard two different things. And so, but again, things change all the time.
I guess I would probably say depends on where you live, but my dad is still alive at 100 years old. And I'm so grateful that the things he taught us is the reason why has lived his life as long as he has. But, so in Texas, it gets hot and rancid, it gets humid, but we have air conditioning homes in there. So basically when I'm down there cooking for him, we just buy the organic olive oil, avocado oil, ghee butter, organic grass-fed butter if I can find it, or organic butters. Now all the butters go in the refrigerator because they will melt on the counters. But in California here, in Northern California, I just went in and noticed that my butter that I have out was a little melted from this heat wave we just had. But otherwise, it stays fine. And it doesn't go rancid. Butter in a solid form, ghee in a solid form, all will not go rancid. But liquid forms, which is your avocado oil and your olive oils, they do. So you have to be careful with them. But we go through them so much when we cook, so we don't even have to worry. So ours are all outside on the counter because we go through them so quickly. So I'd say the rule of thumb is just smell them, taste them. Always make sure. I don't want it cold because it affects the flavor of the oils.
Well, that's what I thought was interesting because I'm like, I don't know that I like it so much like this, but it was just something they said.
And I take a shot.
And I think they were talking about it can go rancid, but they didn't realize that it's like, well, I'm buying good organic olive oils.
Well, here's what happens. Let's just say that you are on a budget and you go look at these organic olive oils and they're upwards of $10 to $30 depending on where you're shopping.
Easily.
And if you're wanting organic. And thank God for Costco's because that's where we shop a lot. And then I also have a grocery store here that's a health food store, focuses on organics only. And we can get our own olive oil. And I'm taking the bottles and refilling them and saving quite a bit.
Oh, that's
but
nice.
Here, the deal of it is that with what people are doing is they're buying their olive oils and they're saving it because they don't want to use it because it's so expensive. So they still have their vegetable oils. Maybe they're using avocado oil because it is cheap. It's still expensive, but it's cheaper than olive. So what's happening is those oils can sit there and go rancid. They don't have time to go rancid at our house because we use them. Now, in my free guide that I offer, I chose seed oils as being the number one poison to remove for a reason, because that single-handedly is wrecking cardiovascular issues. And I just told you that's the number one cause of death today. So, and Kate Shanahan, that's her whole thing. If you read her book about why she explains it. So I just tell people to focus on, here's the rule of thumb again. Olive oil and avocado oils really want to be at low temperatures and not really high heat. And we're cooking the heck out of them in high heat. We're roasting our vegetables. We're roasting a lot. So I'm trying to break my husband of the habit of doing that. If we're going to roast vegetables, which are absolutely delicious, once or twice a week, but don't do them every day in this oil. What is good is on occasion sauteing in ghee butter, lard. I know this sounds weird because lard is pig fat. Yeah. And the best cookies in the whole world that I've ever eaten were made with lard. And my mother said that's what they baked with.
Yeah.
And remember,
my grandparents baked with that.
Well, remember Crisco came in the 70s, which is this fake blob of crap. Yep. And we all used it. It made the flakiest, best crust. And I'll tell a story about how I got into a wrestle with my son in the kitchen. He came home one day. He was living here still, and he's going to make something. And he comes in with a big tub of Crisco. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. And this has just been a couple of years ago. I said, excuse me, what is this? And he said, oh, Mom, just get out of here. And you're going to be, you're so ridiculous. And I said, wait a second. Hold on a minute, hon. We've talked about this ad nauseum. You've got butter right there. You've got ghee. You can use those exactly the same way. Yeah. And they taste incredible. I explained to him, it isn't just one off. You're not just making one little egg and frying it in Crisco. You're making a huge dish. Yeah. All of a sudden, he just kind of got it. But I'm not kidding, Kim. Before that, we're doing a tug of war with the Crisco. I went and got it. He grabbed it back. I'm like, something is wrong with this.
You're like, get it out of here. And I have to say, because my grandparents always used lard for their pie crusts, and my son, one of my sons, loves apple pie and the apple pie I make. And so for a long time, I was like, oh, I hate using lard, but I just switched to using butter or ghee. And honestly, and I don't even like butter, to be honest with you. I just don't like butter. So I just don't use it. I use avocado oil and olive oil because I've not been a big butter eater all my life, other than as a child at my uncle's farm in Canada, because it was different. It just, now it's of course it's like getting the Irish grass-fed butter is what we get. But I switched everything to using butter when I make that pie for him for his birthday. And honestly, it's a lot better. Oh my gosh, much better. It's so much easier to actually work with and everything, but it's interesting. But I have a couple of questions, because we talked about, I opened with, some of the things that you went through. And I know that part of it was probably depleted your immune system with starting early on with maybe how you reacted to a vaccine. And I know everybody's different. I know there's a lot of talk now, obviously, about vaccines, and we don't need to really get into so much about that. I want to get more into the diet and such. And so I look at this and I think there are a lot of people that I know that are women in midlife that suffer with, if I hear another time, how many times I didn't sleep well last night. I don't sleep. I don't know. I go to bed and I don't sleep. And I'm like, well, do you take naps during the day? Do you need a nap? Maybe you shouldn't take a nap, but it's not even that. They don't sleep well. And then also what I often hear too is just, they're always tired. And it's not just not the sleeping, it's tired, like more like almost like that fatigue you feel when you're a new mom, where it's kind of that bone crushing, like in an internal tired. Do you know what I mean? A different kind of level of tired. It's not just like I could lay my head down and take a nap. It's more like, why am I always tired? And I want to know if there's something that you have found, because I know you went through this, that is diet related, because I told you, I remember my daughter with the adrenal fatigue and how she made like an adrenal cocktail, and it completely switched things for her and changing certain things in her diet. And again, we were always pretty healthy eaters. I have to say, my kids never had sodas. I didn't have sodas in the house. We had green leafy vegetables, things like that. It was always vegetables and stuff. So it was like, wow. But when you reach for a cracker sometimes, you just don't realize, and you're having some crackers or pita chips and hummus, and then you look at the package and you go, oh, maybe that's why. You just have to take a look at some of the things that are the ingredients, the oils that are in some of these things. But is there something that you could leave for our listeners? We'll link to the ebooks, but also if there's any one thing that you would say, I know that the oils and such, we have to look at certain things because of the cardiovascular disease. But for chronic fatigue.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're talking about sleep. And I just wanted to mention that, I don't know, we don't have how much time we have left, because I know we've talked about a lot, but Dr. Casey Means was just talking about sleep deprivation is the number one cause of chronic illnesses. And the reason for that is because our circadian rhythm is directly, I was trying to find her exact words because I was taking notes, but it's directly correlated to our cardiovascular and our cell health. So that's how critical it is, number one. And I suffered from chronic fatigue and sleep issues most of my life. Not sleep issues, I could sleep. I would sleep 10 and 12 hours without even batting an eye.
Wow.
And then my friends would all go out on a weekend and they say, which night, this was in high school and college, which night do we get Suzanne? Do we get her Friday night or we get her Saturday night? Because if we take her out Friday night, she's too tired to go out Saturday night. And it was sad. I couldn't keep up with my friends. I couldn't. And if I did, it was
at a young age.
Oh God, worse at a young age. That's when I was raging with cystic acne and hormonal imbalances. And I was eating tons and tons and tons of flour products. I was I'm a recovering pastry and a baker, pastry chef. I made the most amazing, desserts. But this is what I was going to say about sleep. Yes, I have a lot of options for sleep. You know, one of them. We're not going to really talk about one of the products that I love, but sleep is one of the biggest. It's the number one issue with women, especially in midlife. And so, what I found when I talk to my clients and I ask them what their diet is, they are eating a lot of simple carbs throughout the day to keep them up and give them that sugar high. Which simple carbs are your pastas, your rice, your breads. Anything that is processed heavily is going to turn to sugar in your body. So we have to watch how late are they eating those. And if they are, get them out of your diet to begin with. But frankly, at the very beginning, every woman was addicted to a glass of wine or two at nighttime. So what they were doing is they were eating having a glass of wine and a piece of chocolate at nighttime, which chocolate has caffeine in it. And sugar, and then obviously your wine has loaded with sugar. And so what the rule of thumb is first of all, if you can break that habit for at least 6 weeks, you're going to see a major, major improvement I'm not telling you to get this out of your life forever. I mean, I still drink wine. I still do things, but I pay for it the next day. And the important thing is, Kim, is awareness. So if you can get this stuff, if you can follow a little bit of my ideas and my recommendations, you're going to start feeling better. And then you're going to say, do I want to go back to that?
Right.
Even though I'm missing those things, or if I go back to it because you have a binge and a party and you're having fun and you're at a dinner guest at someone's house and you don't want to say no, at least you know what caused it. Okay. So that's number one. The second part of it is when you go to bed at night and you are doing those things, you wake up at that 2 or 3 in the morning. That is called your blood sugar issues have dropped. And so your brain, this is what people don't realize when they go to bed at night and go to sleep. Why is sleep so important? That's when you detox, and that's when you rest and digest. You detox, and your brain is doing all of its regenerative health work that needs to do. It's got to clean out all those poisons you just put in it. And our brain needs a rest, from our crazy days. And so you're depleting yourself of that. And so I recommend what I did just recently. I thought I was kind of pre-diabetic with things because I was having a lot of crashes. You get those blood glucose monitors, and you can check to see after you eat a meal. You have to go through your doctor. Some doctors would do it for me because they know I'm a health coach and they're like, sure, we'll do it. You know what you're doing. But a lot of doctors do recommend that for people to do the blood glucose monitoring. So you wait until I think it's an hour after you eat and you can see what your reading is. I was shocked. My husband and I both were fine. But that's what's happening. Your brain is starving for fuel when you wake up at 1, 2, or 3 in the morning. And you can't go back to sleep. And, what are you going to get up and go? What I used to do is get up and go eat a bowl of cereal. And the joke is right now, cereal is you can't eat one bowl. You need 2 bowls. You want 2 bowls. Then you feel gross after that because you're moving on to your 3rd bowl. But they're such heavily processed. I mean, that's just sugar bombs. And it's just sugar bombs.
But it's addictive too. That's the thing. It's addictive. And
so this is the point about all of this, you guys, is that really the addiction is created for a reason, because when you come back from more food that is addictive, you're going to get sick by it, and you're going to feed the ferocious monster that wants you to go to your doctors, you get a medication, and keep you on that for the rest of your life. Look at Ozempic, Kim. Ozempic is you got to do that for the rest of your life. Did they once ask these people that come in that are overweight what their diet is? What do they eat? What do they drink? How do they sleep? How do you poop? Does anybody ever ask you? This is what I learned early on. If you go to a doctor and they never ask you how your poops are, get up and walk out. They're the wrong doctors for you, because your bowel movements and your excretion of your bowels and urinating are the 2 biggest ways that you can naturally detox. People are over constipated now like never before. And what I find the most of them that are vegetarians or vegans. Now, why is that? It's full of fiber, isn't it? Vegetables are supposed to move things through. Well, guess what's happening to all of our vegetables? They're being sprayed to hell and gone. Yep. And they're not getting the fertilizer that they normally would from a healthy soil. So yes, those vegetables in theory are healthy, but they're not, especially if you're not eating organic and you're getting genetically modified foods and you're getting them sprayed. So this has been the fascination, is that detoxing is the biggest important thing. If I have to tell you anything right now, you've got to detox every day. We used to say a couple of times a year. It's now every day. And you've got to do it in ways that are safe. And that's what I'm all about. But food, you can use food to help support you on that. But yeah, so sleep, you asked me what would I recommend to someone? So there's a lot of things like tryptophan, GABA. There's a lot of support that you can get for your brain. And I do recommend some sleep support, but it's more natural. Valerian root. There's a whole bunch of things you can take at night, but most of the stuff is until you get the toxins out, it's not going to work, and it's going to take a while. And I have a couple of products that I recommend, but I don't have people on it long term. My father is on something. It's not medication, but it's a type of thing you want to take, just to get yourself regulated again to sleeping. Yeah. But it all boils down to diet. It's what you ate during the day is how you're going to sleep at night. Yeah. And also a couple of days ago. It's not just one night. Did that answer it?
It does. No, it does. And because the truth is, you just have to, what I love that you said is that you have to get the toxins out first, because otherwise I think it's kind of a Band-Aid approach. And I don't think we're really getting to the root cause of anything. And it really does all come back to the fact is a lot of our foods are overly processed, which a lot of us know, but we don't understand just what that means. Like we kind of look at, no, but I got gluten-free crackers. Or the other thing is that we don't realize just how many pesticides are still being used on the foods. And it's time to just change that, because honestly, the buck stops with us. I mean, if you want to take control of your life, you got to make those changes. It does create this cycle, because if you don't, then it's like, okay, then you go to the doctor and then okay, we might have to put you on this. And I just laugh at any time I hear those commercials on the radio where it's like, okay, well, then the fast talk comes in. It's like, but just know that if you take this, it might cause more heart ailments, chronic fatigue, might cause sudden death has happened in some people. Yeah. I'm like, well, why would I even take what?
I write all that down. I write it all down, and then I go to my Instagram and I start saying, look at these products and what they're touting. And guess what? They're telling you now, this is kind of it's a little interesting because I can't be a hypocrite, but what they're doing is the pharmacy now. Did you know now that you can get your pharmaceutical things online? You don't even have to go to a doctor anymore. Isn't that great? You can just go right to the pharmacist and get all the stuff you need. The point is that the pharmaceutical industry is telling you to go tell your doctor what you need. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm educating my community to go tell your doctor to do these lab tests, and it's really just to go do the lab test. It's nothing else. But somebody would say, well, you're being a hypocrite because you're telling these patients your clients what to do, are going to go to a doctor. And it's like, yes, but we have the intention of doing no harm. And the Hippocratic Oath of all the medical profession right now to do no harm is they're doing the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. They're harming right and left. And I've had conversations with doctors about it, and they just look at me, and you know what they say? Well, if I don't do that and give them their antibiotics, which is wrecking their gut, or giving them antacids, which is wrecking their gut, or give them the pill to help the pain go away because it was just wrecking their gut, they're going to go somewhere else. And I said, well, hallelujah. Why don't you let them?
Or if I say what I really know to be true, I could lose my license.
Yes, but I know now this particular doctor is in bed with Pharmaceutical. So I know. Oh, yeah. And so what they're talking about right now in these panels that I've been listening to that are basically trying to affect change and impart change in Congress is that they're just saying the doctors are at the mercy of, they're decades at the mercy of these pharmaceuticals that they didn't know in the beginning were doing so much harm, but now we do. And there are some of them, unless you retire and move on, what are you going to do? This is your career and your lifestyle. And patients are now, Kim, trained and addicted to these pharmaceuticals. And they're addicted to these foods. So it's a big monolithic mountain that we've got to move. It's not going to be easy, but there's going to be a handful of people that are willing to step up and do the work. And I'm working with some right now that I'm going to be interesting to see what they say to me when I explain to them why they're obese and why they have these chronic mental health issues. And Kim, really the tragedy, sweetie, it's wrecking our bodies, but it's wrecking our brains. Yeah. And that's what is causing, there's all of the conspiracy theories behind all of this. Well, this is going on because this is going on and that's going on, but it's the truth. If your brain is not functioning, You can't make good decisions.
No, it suppresses everything. You go into brain fog and you can't make good decisions. And you just, you know what? It's like, lead
Yeah.
me to where I should go and what I should do, because you're walking
Yes.
around in a daze
Robots.
all the time. And then people get so tired and they don't want to do it. So, I mean, I think the bottom line here is that you have to be your own best advocate. You have to take a look at what is going on, and you have to make those decisions and read. My gosh, there's so many things that you can find out now online, but you have to read and look at all the fine print and understand and take a look at what's really going to work for you.
But Kim, it's overwhelming. So,
Yeah.
it's overwhelming. That's why so many of us are health coaches now, because the doctors can't do it. But I can't get doctors to give me their clients. They're afraid I'm going to take them away. They know. They're like, but it's not. It's like, don't you want to heal your clients? I can get them in 3 months. We could have them moved on where they only need to see you once in a while. And don't you realize you can have now more time with your current clients, and you can have quality of work instead of quantity. They're a slave to the insurance companies. But I just want to mention, this is really important for the audience. And, I want to get this out there before we wrap up. Here's the pillars of health right now. The top, I used to think it was dietary first. Well, I was doing the diet and I wasn't feeling better because I had stress. That's the next level up. If you don't get the stress underway, the diet sucks. The diet is not going to do it, no matter how much you pump in nutrition and supplements. But above that, which is everybody now, are the toxins. So the first thing you have to do is you have to address the toxins. We don't have to spend thousands of dollars on lab testing for you. We can assume that if you've got chronic disorders, you have toxins. We all do. And you're not getting them out, Kim. You didn't have all the stuff that I had growing up with my mother smoking and my vaccine poisoning and all these different things. And we don't know that I was vaccine poisoning, so I should be very careful about that. But I had vaccine reactions. That's my plight in life and why I'm doing the work I am. However, you've got to get the toxins out. And if you're someone like yourself, you probably just need a little support. And you could do that with a couple of products that I represent that moves things quicker. And the brain, especially the brain. Then you've got to look at your stress levels. Who are you living with? How is your workload? How much exercise and movement are you doing? Yada, yada. And then you go to diet. And those three things together are making waves right now. People are seeing things right and left. Their chronic issues are going by the wayside. They're feeling better. They're able to make better decisions. But until you do that, I can talk all days about your diet and cleaning out your poisons. But if you've got stress and toxins, your poisons they're just marinating in your body until you get those other things addressed. But I'd probably say I'm an outlier. I'm one of we call my situation like the canary in the coal mine. And I can tell you story over story when my son and my husband and I go get sick. We all get sick. I'm sick for 3 weeks. They're sick for 1 or 2 days, maybe less than a week. I'm sick for longer. And I've had long COVID too. I've had long COVID. It's in my, I just have had it. So, I think a big part of it is, that's why I wrote the ebooks really was so that people they could have autonomy. I want to create autonomy. I want you to know what you can do. I want to give you the options. You get to make the choice. You're going to see results if you do it within 3 months. If you don't, then, maybe we have to move you on to more help than I would give. But that way you don't have to go to the doctors. You know what to do.
Yeah.
The choice is yours.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And so much of it does start with being aware of what you're eating and what you're doing and what your lifestyle is and all of that. So I love that you brought that up, and thank you for being here and sharing that with us today, and how you actually took control of that for yourself and got yourself on the right track so you have more energy and more vitality in life. Yeah. So we will link the information to your Poisons in the Pantry. I love that title. So people can take a look at it and go through and go, oh my gosh, I had no idea. But we will link that down below, as well as the information and ways for people that they can get in touch with you.
Well, thank you, sweetie. I really appreciate it. And don't forget, get the free guide first, because if you're in overwhelm and you have no idea what this means, there's a free guide. And within that, and that's the one on the industrial seed oils. I just had it here, and Kim and I didn't go over, but this is all of I give you all the choices. I don't leave you just hanging, but get that one first. And then there is a $10 coupon code to get the ebook. So it's the ebook's $9.99. now. It was 20. But anyway, that's the best thing to do. Start with that because you want both, because
Right.
I don't have all that information on the ebook that I have on the free guide.
Okay.
So, anyway, all right. hon,
Perfect.
thank
So we
you.
will link it all down below. Thanks so much for being here, Suzanne. I appreciate it.
I do too. Super fun. Nice to talk to you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining me here today. If you want some help achieving your goals, you can grab the Success Bundle link down below or head over to my website, kimkellythompson.com, where I have several free resources to help you. If you like what you've heard today, please consider hitting that subscribe button and join me throughout the week for episodes that will help you make your dreams your reality. I'll be back again soon with another edition of Shift or Get Off the Pot.